the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God. Amen.
First and foremost, thank you, Tsabuna, for inviting me, and for Mina for inviting me. This is my blessing and my honor to be with you. I look forward to learning from you as well, learning from your comments and your questions. So I hope we can make this more of a dialogue, of a discussion, not so much a lecture. So this is, I think, the way we learn most, is when we interact and engage in discussions. So the questions or the topics that I was given by Mina, I will go over them very quickly, the topics of this weekend. First, the rhetorical question, is there a God? They all revolve around the existence of God. So tonight, I know we have to leave by 10 o'clock, Mina, correct?
Let's go 10:15.
10:15, hopefully not more way after that. So we'll talk about the existence of God. How can we, as Christians, as believers, how can we discuss this very important question, does God exist, without using the scriptures? Okay, how can we, by using logic and reason, how can we engage in discourse with others when they ask us this question, does God exist? Of course, we can't say, just because my mom and dad believe in God, I grew up in a Christian family, therefore I believe in God. How can we have an intellectual discussion with others? The second talk will revolve around morality and ethics. Can I live a good moral life without the existence of God? Do I need God for me to be a good person? I am sure you've seen billboards. I have seen them all over the place. You can be good without God. You don't need God to be a good person. And prominent atheists have been very vocal on sidelining God, saying you don't need God to live a good, moral, civil life. That's the second question. The third topic or discussion, well, now if we make the case for God, which God? Why is it that I am a Christian? What's the distinctiveness of Christianity and of Christ? Is it the God of Islam, the God of Buddhism, Hinduism? Okay, so we'll make the case for Christ. All of the discussion will be, I will use the scriptures minimally, intentionally. Not because I don't believe in what the scripture says, but I want to make sure that I equip you with answers when you're asked these questions. Any of you have been confronted or asked these questions before, or contemplated those questions? Any of you? Yeah, some of you? Okay. So the existence of God, I think it's life's ultimate question. Life's ultimate question. Before I begin, I want to ask you tell me, if I were to, I am your friend, colleague, well, Balash colleague, you're not supposed to discuss these things at work. A friend of yours, and I'm asking you, do you really believe that God exists? And what would be your question? And why would you say yes or no? That's for you to say. Does God exist? Yes or no?
Yes.
Tell me more. Yes. Yes. Tell me a couple of reasons why you believe God exists. And of course, don't say that the Bible tells me so.
No. For me, it's the fact that this world is too perfect, the human body is too perfect to be something that is by accident. There's no way by chance two atoms or something like that came together and we all came out with 5 fingers, 2 ears, 1 nose. There would be defects consistently across like the human race, and just the landscape, it looks like an artist did it.
Very good. So the design points to a designer.
Yes.
Very good. Very good. What else? Anybody else? Come on, one more and we'll go on. I want to get you guys to speak with me. I know it's a little late. You've been driving for so long, so please put your thinking caps on and talk with me. Yes, ma'am.
I read a book and it said that
what book?
It's a case for a creator.
Very good. One of the great books.
Yeah, it said that if evolution was to actually have been existing, we wouldn't even be this advanced.
Very good. Excellent. You know Lee Strobel?
Abuna James gave me the college version of it.
Yeah, he's my teacher. the person that wrote this book, Lee Strobel, he's a great author. So this is just a side note, excellent answer to the question. Lee Strobel wrote a few books called The Case for Christ, The Case for Faith, and The Case for the Creator. Excellent 3 books that I would recommend for you to put in your library. So this is life's ultimate question. Ravi Zacharias is a Christian author and apologist, one of my great mentors whom I love very much. He said this, he said, your morality, your language, the way you treat others, your private values, how you handle money, how you handle sexuality, all of this are the entailments of whether you believe God exists or not. In other words, it's life's most pivotal question. Does God exist or does he not? Well, then we know that the atheist says what? God does not exist. And then the theist believers say what? God does exist. The agnostic say what? Says what? What does the agnostic say?
Possible. I don't know whether it's...
Exactly. I don't know if there is a God or not. I don't know if God exists. Agnostic means I don't know. Gnosis means to know in Greek. That's why we have K that we don't pronounce in English, because we got it from Greek, the G, gnosis. So gno means to know. Agnostic means I don't know. So the word agnostic means I don't know. Well, the skeptic says what?
That there is a God, but they don't know who.
Not quite. When you're skeptical, you're what?
Not sure.
Huh? Doubtful, exactly. So you doubt that God exists. So the atheist says one thing, the theist says another thing, the agnostic says I don't know, and the skeptic says I doubt there is a God. Well, who's right? Who's right? Let's examine the evidence and see where the evidence point to. Either this atheist that says God doesn't exist, and he or she would support their position with the evidence, or the theist, or the skeptic, or the agnostic. So there are 7 answers that every religion or every worldview or every philosophy needs to answer. 7 questions. And I want to put every single, school of thought, agnosticism, skepticism, naturalism, humanism, theism, atheism, all the isms in the world, put them to the test for them to answer coherently those 7 questions. How can we answer those 7 questions? This weekend we will take only 2 or 3, and maybe next year, maybe we can do the other 3 or 4. The first one is, where did the universe come from? Questions of origin, cosmology. Where did the universe come from as we know it? Question number 2, where did human life come from? So this is question of cosmological origin, biological origin. Okay. Number 3, is there a designer behind the design which you alluded to earlier? Is there a designer behind this design? Question number 4, who or what determines right from wrong? Questions of ethics and morality. Who says this is right and who says this is wrong? And this is what we will discuss tomorrow, God willing. Question number 5, why are you here? Why am I here? What's the purpose of life? What's the purpose of life? Question number 6, what's beyond the grave? Where do I go when I die? And question number 7, which in and of itself could be an entire retreat, why is there so much evil in this world? The problem of evil and suffering. If God is so good and loving and powerful and omnibenevolent and all of that, why does he allow all this evil in this world? All of these questions must be answered by every single philosophy or religion or worldview. All of those 7 must be answered, and answered logically, coherently, and reasonably. Now, if you look at those 7, you can categorize them into 3 categories, or 3 buckets: past, present, and future. Questions of the past: where did I come from? Questions of the present: why am I here? And questions of the future: where am I going? In the journey of life, there is a beginning, and there is a present of the journey, and then there is a future of that journey. Where did that journey come from? Where did I come from? My origin and my meaning. Why am I here? What's the purpose of my existence? And then my future state. Where am I going when I die? So these are what I call the existential questions of life. All of us must at one point ponder upon these questions. And if you don't, you should. You should sit with, we're going to have quiet time, I think, tomorrow, I believe, or today, even better. So in this quiet time, what should we do? We should have some self-reflection. Questions of, ask yourself, what am I the product of? Am I the product of matter plus time plus chance? Am I the product of evolution as I hear? Am I the product of just my mom and dad came together and I am the product of their marriage? Why am I here? Where did I come from? Okay. The other question is, why am I here? What's the purpose of my life? What's the overarching purpose? Am I just here to kind of go to college, go to school, go to college, graduate, get a job, get married, have kids, retire, and then die? Is this just what life is all about? Why am I here? What's the purpose of my life? And then where am I going when I die? Is there a life after death? All of these questions are questions that philosophers and scholars through the years have pondered and wanted to come up with answers to. And this is what I will be discussing with you, at least partly, this weekend. So, question number 1. Where did the universe come from? Where did the universe come from? It is also, I'll give you the academic technical term, it's called the Cosmological Argument. Comes from the cosmos, also known as the argument from cause and effect. This is the first question, or the first topic is the most philosophically heavy, so don't be disappointed. It will get much more practical as we talk about morality and ethics tomorrow. So don't get turned off by the philosophically heavy discussion this morning. The cosmological argument says this: whatever begins to exist has a cause. Okay? This is the premise, number 1. Do you agree with this premise? Everything that begins to exist has a cause. Nothing just comes out of nothing. The universe began to exist. Therefore, the conclusion of the second premise, so this is the first premise, major premise, the minor premise, the conclusion follows. Therefore, the universe had a cause. It's a very simple syllogism or philosophical argument. You have the premise that says everything that begins to exist has a cause, or must have a cause. The universe began to exist. Now, if you want to refute this conclusion, you must refute the premises. If you prove this premise wrong, then the conclusion doesn't follow. If you prove this premise wrong, then the conclusion doesn't follow. So for you to prove the conclusion, you must prove the premises. Are you following me? Okay. So let's have this question answered. What caused the universe? And there are 4 possible explanations, 4 possible answers. And then we'll go through each one of them and we'll call it a night. Meshi? All right. What are... okay, I added this picture, malish, later on. It could either come from 4 possible causes. It comes from nothing. The universe came from nothing. The universe was self-made. I need to do my animations a little bit better, forgive me. Nothing, self-made, the universe is eternal, or the universe is created. There's nothing else, no other 5th option. Some people, some Eastern mystics, some Buddhists say something else, or add another 5th option. You know what it is? The universe to the Buddhist, to most Zen Buddhists, is what? It's what? It's very good. It's an illusion. Very good. It's an illusion. But if the universe is an illusion, then those who live in the universe is an illusion. Then those who are asking the questions are also illusions, and those who answers the questions are also illusions. So it doesn't matter. You see? So in other words, it's not even worth entertaining. So it's either it came from nothing, self-made, eternal, created. Most recently, any of you heard of Lawrence Krauss? You've heard of Lawrence Krauss. Very good. He came up with, I'm going to tackle each one of them. Did the universe come from nothing? Let's see. Does it make sense that the universe came from nothing? Yes? We'll talk about that. Mina, you want to expand on that?
I know very little about it, but my understanding of the universe coming from nothing is that it's possible that there could have been negative energy, which is like the absence of energy, and that in itself could formulate a burst, which is the Big Bang Theory, and something can be out of nothing. And he writes an entire book about that. I just have like a quick snippet of what the idea is, but I have no idea about like the physics and the quantum physics that's behind it.
Very good. Excellent. Well, okay, so you must have, yes. Again from you. Angel, yes.
Why are we assuming that in order for something to be self-made, it can't also be eternal? We're assuming that those two things are mutually exclusive, but...
I'll explain exactly in a second as we go through these. Very good question. Very good question. I don't want to make any false assumptions. A good question you raised. Anyone else want to address this? Did the universe come from nothing? Does it make sense logically? Well, the author that I was referring to, Lawrence Krauss, I know Mina had heard of him. Lawrence Krauss is a theoretical physicist. He is a quantum mechanics guru. He has a PhD in quantum mechanics from Arizona State, and he wrote this book. He called it a unit. And by the way, if you want to have, maybe, I don't know, later tonight or tomorrow, I have a 5-minute video clip. It's, do you know Stephen Colbert? Do you know who that is? You know who that is? Okay. He hosted, Colbert Report. Colbert Report, exactly. He hosted Lawrence Krauss, and this is a 5-minute video clip. It's a comical, very funny, and he addresses this book, Universe from Nothing. I'd love to share it with you guys. I don't think time will allow it tonight, but maybe tomorrow. Anyways, Lawrence Krauss says, he wrote this book, he called it A Universe from Nothing. And he said, one of the things about quantum mechanics, I'm not a scientist, so I'm just have to take this by faith. I have no idea what that means. I have an idea, but I don't know what that means. Quantum mechanics is not only can nothing become something, nothing always becomes something, says Dr. Krauss. Nothing is unstable. Nothing will always produce something in quantum mechanics. So you can imagine many atheists that have always been have struggled with this question, where did the universe come from? Including Richard Dawkins, which I'm sure you've heard of. They looked at this book and they said, that's it. This is the answer we've been looking for. That satisfies my intellect. The universe came from nothing. I'm now happy. I can now justify my atheism. But then, of course, you have to do some research and understand and investigate what this book says and what Krauss says in his book. It turns out, and I have a couple of articles I'd like to share with you as well. It turns out Dr. Krauss's definition of nothing is not the nothing from which the universe originated. In other words, what he means by nothing is not what everyone else understands as nothing. He committed a philosophical fallacy called equivocation fallacy. What is equivocation fallacy? Is that when you use the same term to mean two different things. I'll give you an example. Any of you has a PhD or a doctor? No? Well, you wouldn't be here. Okay, in college. Okay. Let's say Mina has a PhD, and we would call him Dr. Mina. He has a PhD in chemistry. Can I go to Dr. Mina for a prescription for a medication? No, because he is not that kind of doctor. He is this kind of doctor. What have I committed? An equivocation fallacy. I'm using the word doctor to mean something else, but the word doctor could mean two different things. The word nothing also, Dr. Krauss used it equivocally, fallaciously, if I could say that. He basically used nothing to mean something else. So in his book, nothing actually is something. That's why Dr. David Albert, another PhD who studied quantum mechanics, who's also an atheist, he wrote a huge article in New York Times. I can send you this link. Huge article, like 12 pages long in New York Times, responding to what Dr. Lawrence Krauss said in his book, A Universe from Nothing. He basically said, all there is to say about this, what Krauss said, as far as I can see, is that Krauss is dead wrong, and his religious and philosophical critics are absolutely right. In other words, don't go out there saying the universe came from nothing when what you mean by nothing is not really nothing. Philosophically speaking, what does nothing mean? No thing. Nothing is what? Look at the word nothing. No thing. How can a thing comes from a no thing? Think with me. Just pure logic. How can a thing comes from a no thing? Aristotle said what? A cannot be A and non-A in the same time. Today cannot be, what's today? Friday in North America and not Friday in North America in the same time. So if no thing cannot be thing in the same time. Do you get it? Do you see? So nothing can come from nothing. And if you watch the movie, okay, you can tell me what movie that says nothing comes from nothing, nothing ever will. Julie Roberts? No, Julie Andrews. Julie Andrews. Sound of Music. No? Any of you? Sound of Music? Okay. That's what she says in the movie. Yes, sir.
Sorry to belabor the point.
No worries.
Why are we assuming that linear logic works if so far we have no reason to believe that quantum physics adheres to linear logic? Why wouldn't modal logic be a better application? I mean, why are we assuming that?
Between linear and modal?
And well,
what's the difference? Qualify.
If we're going to say that A equals B, and in that sense of sentential logic,
right.
Why is sentential logic necessarily the right answer? In sentential logic, things are either A or not A, but in modal logic, that's not necessarily the case.
Okay, very good. Very good. So you're basically saying that there's an either or versus an either and. Is this what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is in some versions of logic, they take
Give me some examples. I'd like examples.
In modal logic, in order for something to be true or not true, it has to be true in all possible instances, meaning in all possible universes.
Sure.
And so modal logic is the application of sentential logic across different dimensions.
Give me an example again. I mean, this is theory so far.
In order to prove A, for example, you have to prove that A will always, you can always substantiate A in every single possible universe, which means you have to account for A existing in every single instance that you can think of.
What does that have to do?
So something can be A and not A at the same time, is what I'm saying.
Something can be A and non-A at the same time. Okay, there are two laws that would contradict what you said, philosophical laws. The first one is the law of excluded middle and the law of non-contradiction. There is a law that you can read up on, and I don't want to spend too much time on that because I think that's kind of outside the, because this is not a philosophy lesson. But there is a law that I would like to I'd like you to read up on. It's called the law of non-contradiction. The law of non-contradiction, specifically philosophical law, it's a law of logic and reason, and it's a law that you and I use every single day. As a matter of fact, we're using it as we speak. The law of non-contradiction that says A cannot be A and non-A in the same time and the same sense. I did not come up with this law. This is the law of logic and reason. And if you were to refute this law, you are using it in refuting it. Okay? In other words, if you say the sky is blue and I say the sky is green, one of us is not both of us can be right. Both of us can actually be wrong. It could be red. You see what I'm saying? But it cannot be green and blue in the same time, in the same sense. That's the law of non-contradiction. So if I assert A equals A and B equals B, I cannot say that A is non-A and B is non-B. Then my argument falters. So, but we'll discuss that later, but law of non-contradiction would answer your question. So back to the universe from nothing. Robert Jastrow, he's an agnostic astronomer. And he's a physicist, cosmologist, he's an atheist. I'm going to give you some excerpts, some people that said few things about the origin of the universe. And these few people are not people like, مثلا, أي حد كده وخلاص. They are people that have studied 30, 40 years of their life. They invested their life in studying these disciplines and subjects. And they are atheists. And it's because of their studies in science, they realized that science is compelling them to believe in the existence of God. This is what he said. The creation of matter out of nothing would violate the principle of the conservation of matter and energy, which states that matter and energy can be neither created nor destroyed. Matter can be converted into energy and vice versa, but the total amount of all matter and energy in the universe must remain unchanged forever. It is difficult to accept a theory that violates such a firmly established scientific fact. So basically he's responding to the first question or possibility. The universe could not have come from nothing. And here is the link for the Colbert report. So logically, nothing can come from nothing. Well, let's look at the other possibility. Is it self-made? Did the universe create itself? What do y'all think? Yes or no? Think logic. Did the universe create itself? Could it create itself? Yes?
Well, there had to be something to create.
Okay, hold on. Speak up. Speak up.
There had to be something there to create
Perfect.
what was
Great.
created.
What's your name?
Monica.
Monica, right on. Great, Monica. So there has to be something there to create. In other words, the universe, for it to create itself, it must first be. You see? It must exist before its existence. For it to create itself. In other words, it must be and not be in the same time. How can something create itself? For it to create itself, it must first exist prior to its creation. Well, wait a minute. How can I exist prior to my existence? It doesn't make sense. This is very easy to refute, and not so many adhere to this because it's very almost silly philosophically. All right. So, as we said, it must exist prior to itself. Well, let's look at the third possibility, which is the most commonly used justification for the universe. Atheists, all the way up until the late 19th century, were saying, most renowned atheists, including skeptics like David Hume, like Immanuel Kant, most skeptics and non-believers said that the universe has always existed. It's eternal. This is what Immanuel Kant said, the philosopher. The universe is eternal. It's always been there. True or false? True? The universe has always been there. False. All right. According to Angelo, both of you are right. But you can't be both right. You see? I'm not picking on you. I'm not picking on you. But that's what I mean by saying they both cannot be right. One of them is wrong. So, which one? Mina. Yes.
Well, the universe has to be created at one point in time, because not only does the Bible say that God created the universe, also logic and everything else says that the universe came from something which was nothing at one point. And
very good. Just logic or science?
No, I mean science.
Okay.
I meant to say science.
Okay.
Yes.
Very good. Because this is when I appeal to science. This is when I go back to a shift and I appeal to the findings and conclusions of science. Any of you heard of the word entropy? You have second law of thermodynamics and the first law of thermodynamics. This is I'm not a scientist, so I'm not gonna FT and say I know what these are, but these are scientific laws. That's why I said up to the 19th century, because these are recently have been concluded or been made conclusive that these scientific laws have asserted that the universe will come to an end at one point in time, and it will reach a state of entropy. Entropy, yani it will be desolate, it will be dark, no life will be found on this universe. So if the universe is going to at one point reach that state, it means that it must have had a beginning, because if it was eternal, it would have reached that state by now. Do you see? Do you get it? Are you with me? Are you with me? Should I go on or should I repeat that again? I'll repeat that again. I'm not going to tell you what Arthur said. Do you guys know who this guy is? Anyone of you watched the movie The Theory of Everything, I think it's called? Right? Stephen Hawking, great Oxford scientist and physicist. He said, he's given a lecture on his 70th birthday. He said, the conclusion of this lecture is that the universe had not existed forever, where actually he was saying the opposite. Rather, the universe and time itself had a beginning in the Big Bang. A point of creation would be a place where science broke down. One would have to appeal to religion and the hand of God. And he is one of the most renowned atheists. And he said the universe had a beginning. What I mean to say is that if the universe at one point will come to an end, it would follow logically that it must have had a beginning, because if it was eternal, then it would have reached that end by now. I'll give you an example. If I am walking very slowly, and at one point I will reach this wall. At one point, let's say after 10 million years, if I'm walking extremely slow, and after 10 million years, if I'm walking, I will reach this wall. Will I not? مش كده? Now, if I have been eternally walking, يعني from no beginning, from the beginning of time, ما فيش حتى beginning of time, eternally walking, do you think that I would have reached this wall by now? مش كده? Yes? ولا أنا عقدتكم أكتر?
Because everything is in this world is deteriorating.
Yes.
Yeah, everything, nothing in this world stable. Everything is deteriorating. So that's why there is always a beginning and end, because nothing proven scientifically even that lasts forever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's exactly what the scientific second law of thermodynamics says, is that everything moves from order to disorder. Exactly. Yes, sir.
The reason why I said that I felt like the universe was eternal was from my subjective view, if the universe stemmed from God, and God created the universe, meaning that the universe has always been through God. So for instance, logically, if I carry my father's name, and then I have kids, and he carries my name, and he stems that name, it will end at one point. But God is eternal.
Very good. Now,
so how can it?
I see what you're saying. Very good. Now, this very easy answer to this question is the way we define universe.
Yeah. See, it's subjective.
Very good.
I was viewing it as if God created it.
Very good. Very good. So we just had the definition of what I mean by the universe here is the created physical material universe. You see? Yeah.
In the mind of God.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's what I was thinking.
But so in this case, both of you were right.
All right. So
Both of you are right. So Angelo, you're right. There's a possibility that both of you are right if we're defining things differently.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Also, Alexander Vilenkin, he's an authority figure in the field of cosmology. He said, all the evidence we have says that the universe had a beginning. These people, by the way, are not Christians. They're not believers in God. These are atheists. And I intentionally brought some excerpts from atheists that are very objective relative to their studies in science and what they said. And this is the second law of thermodynamics. So in conclusion, if the universe did not come from nothing, if it is not self-made or self-caused, if it's not eternal, then by the process of elimination, the universe must be created. The universe must be created. Now, who's following the evidence? It seems that all the evidence that we've discussed and we will continue to discuss shows that the universe had a beginning. So who's actually following the evidence, the theist or the atheist? Now there's one question that no atheist can logically have an answer to. And I have spoken to hundreds of atheists throughout the past decade on college campuses, and this is what I do. I do what's called on-campus ministry, and I go to colleges and campuses and universities, in Northern California and Southern California and in Canada. I was in UCI not long ago. Speaking to college kids, and many of them, some of them are very ruthless, and when they're hardcore atheists, and they argue with you, but then there's one question they can't answer: where did the universe come from? One question, they can't answer that question. When Richard Dawkins, the bishop of all atheists, he's the patriarch of atheists, when he was asked this question, you know what he said? He said, science one day will come up with an answer to that question, but as of now, I have no answer for the question of the existence of the universe. Now, those who say evolution actually prove their ignorance even more. You know why? Evolution, and listen to this, evolution explains the survival of species, not the arrival of species. You see, it explains the survival of species, not the arrival of. Even if you study Darwin himself in his book *The Origin of Species*, he never claimed that he has the answer to where they came from. He only claims how they, through natural selection and mutation, have come to where they are now. So the question that begs the answer is, where did the universe come from? Yes, sir.
I have a question concerning that. Actually, I just said that. It could be just the version, but the King James version, I'm going to read it. It says,
what are you reading from
Genesis
again?
chapter 1, Genesis.
Oh, okay.
Chapter 1, verse 20. And it said, and God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creatures that hath life, and the fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament and of heaven. Mm-hmm. That sounds like evolution. They believe that the first animal came from the earth.
Sure.
So I'm not agreeing with evolution, but I am agreeing with the concept that you say that it is the evolution of species, their survival, not just their creation, but their survival.
Very good.
The Bible is like supplemented to science, or science is supplemented to the Bible, of course.
Yeah, and I would love to. This is actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because I don't want to open that kind of worms of evolution. But I'm glad you did, because I would like to at one point discuss this with you all. I've had last year's conference with His Grace Bishop Yusuf in Florida was on the subject of evolution. Does the Coptic Orthodox Church believe in evolution, and if so, what type of evolution, and so on and so forth. So we can extensively discuss that. I'm maybe surprising you, but I do not oppose the theory of evolution only as it is in alignment with the scriptures. And this is what His Grace Bishop Yusuf and I had come to terms with. There is an evolution that we don't agree with, and there's an evolution that we agree with. So what you have just mentioned is obviously the one we agree with, which is the microevolution, not the macroevolution. But what Charles Darwin was speaking about is the survival of species in a way that they have through natural selection and so on and so forth. But the question remains, where did they come from? That no one has an answer to that question. Where did that come from? So the second question, before we move on from the explanation or the question of where did the universe come from, anyone has a comment on that? Or anyone can come up with an alternative. It's not self-made, it's not eternal, it did not come from nothing, it must be created. We'll answer some objections later on, but I just want to go to the second question real quick. Where did I come from? Now, we can talk about the universe, but what about human life? Where did I come from? Am I designed, or did it just happen? Am I the product of chance, or am I a product of someone who deliberately put me in existence? Sir Fred Hoyle, he's the most noted English astronomer, again another atheist, a scientist. He says biochemical systems are exceedingly complex, so much so that the chance of being formed through random shuffling is insensibly different from zero. In other words, it's almost zero. There must be an intelligence which designed the biochemicals and gave rise to the origin of life. And he's an atheist, and he said there must be a mind behind life. There must be, because the chance that the biochemical systems are so complex, the chance they came from random shuffling is almost insensibly different from zero. George Wald, also a Harvard professor elected to the National Academy of Science, awarded the Nobel Prize winner, or Nobel Prize, for physiology and medicine. He says, since life cannot come from non-life, the only logical conclusion is that life was created supernaturally. Again, another atheist. All of these are atheists, by the way. And there's a law called the law of biogenesis. Any of you heard of that law? Louis Pasteur, you know, the عمل pasteurization of milk or حاجة مش كده؟ مش عمل حاجة زي كده؟ Yeah? Louis Pasteur said this: living things come only from other living things. This is a law in science. It's called the law of biogenesis. In other words, non-life cannot produce life. If there's life, it must come from life. And Anthony Flew, also another atheist. He's actually one of the most renowned atheists. He just died recently, by the way. One of the most renowned atheists. He is the again, like another Richard Dawkins, but for the U.S. Anthony Flew. He has millions of followers. So, we know that life must come from life. And we know that the universe must have been created. So these are the two conclusions we come up with. Are there any objections? Of course, يعني في atheists موجودين مش هيقولوا okay خلاص now we believe when can we get baptized? Okay? What are the first objections? Some of the objections we have. You say that God created everything. Who then created God? Don't we get that question all the time? Any of you get that question before? مش كده? We say that God is the first cause of everything. Well, who caused him to exist? What do you all say? Your turn to speak. Who created God? Anyone? Anyone? Come on, help me out. Who created God? Who made God?
He's self-made.
He's self-made. Okay. Very good. Anyone else? Come on, think. He's eternal. By definition, he's eternal. And by the way, this question can come from an adult or can come from a little boy. And my son, you'll see tomorrow, he asked this question, hey dad, you say everything, God made everything. Well, can you tell me who made God? Of course, you're not going to give a philosophical answer. I mean, I lost him. When I gave him some philosophical answers, he was gone. He was like, Dad, what are you talking about? You have to give him some.
The other three, those out of the four views, whether it was created or
right?
He embodies the other three.
He embodies the other three. More specifically, yes, Monica.
How is God eternal but the universe can't be?
Excellent question. Excellent question. How is God eternal but the universe can't be? Very good. Some atheists would say that. I say God is eternal. Well, I mean, why not the universe? But we already talked about that, didn't we? Science proved that one of them is not eternal. At least one of them is not. Right? You can appeal to science. You can appeal to the second law of thermodynamics that the universe is not eternal. What else? Who created God? Okay, let's go back to the argument. The argument says, let me go back to the argument real quick. I thought I had a slide on it. All right. The argument says what? Whatever what begins to exist has a cause. Remember that. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. Now, forgive me, I'm going back and forth. So to answer this question, only things that had a what? Beginning are caused. Only things that had a beginning are caused. Only things that are caused are created or made. God, by definition, has no beginning. Therefore, he needs no cause. Do you see? Since he had no beginning, he is uncaused. Now, how do I know he has no beginning? Well, couldn't I say that the universe has no beginning? Well, we already proven that the universe had a point in time when it was created or put into existence. So either God is eternal or the universe is eternal. Well, I know one of them is not. Then the other must be eternal, who actually caused the other to exist. So by definition, God has no beginning. Why is that? For something to begin and to be caused, there must be the dimension of what? Time. Time. Have you heard of the law of cause and effect? You know what I mean by cause and effect? Everything in the universe has a cause and effect. This cup is an effect of another cause. That cause is the factory that made this cup. And that factory is the effect of another cause. Do you see what I'm saying? Everything in the universe is contingent or is caused by something else. So the law of cause and effect doesn't apply in the absence of time. If there's no time, there's no cause and effect. If there's no cause and effect, there's no beginning. And that's how it works. You see? So God is not subject to time. He is beyond the dimension of time. Time is not co-eternal with God, or else time would be God. You see? Time is not co-eternal. It doesn't go from eternity. God created the universe in time. It's difficult for us to comprehend. Do you know why? Because we are creatures created in space and time. We can only think here and now. Imagine if you are put beyond time. Let me explain to you. I'll try to illustrate. Maybe if I can, I'll take this. So let's say, here's the line. You see this line? This is how we humans think when it comes to time. There is past. Do you know much about your past? We have some recollection of what happened in the past. There is the present. Do you know much about the present? Yes, that's pretty much all you know is the present. What you live right now. Where you live right now. This very moment. As a matter of fact, that very moment that I just said, this very moment had become part of the past. So the present is what? Is ever moving. That 5 minutes ago that I asked you that question died, became part of the past. Now the present is ever moving. And I think this is a sign for me to... Okay. And then we have the future, which hasn't come yet, which we don't know anything about. So we are linear creatures. We live in we know something of the past, we live in the present, and we don't know much about the future, but we live linearly, correct? Now, what is time to God? It is not a line. It's what? It's a dot. Past, present, future are all infused in one dot. And that's where God is. So for God, the past is actually present. For God, the future is also present. He is the ever-present being that lives in and of himself, not because someone else gave him life, lives beyond this concept of time. He doesn't have past, present, future. When he uses terms in the scriptures that delineate past, present, and future, he is using human language to signify divine concepts. Do you see my point? So do you understand now how God can be beyond past, present, future? When we know this, or when we comprehend this, we can then say, oh, so God has no beginning because he is beyond time. He's not subjected to the law of cause and effect or law of causality. Therefore, if he has no beginning, he is also uncaused. So by definition, God is eternal, uncreated, first cause. By definition. Okay? Does that make sense? Somewhat, at least? Okay. It's like, you know what? I'll give you an example. Can I ask you this question? Who's the bachelor's wife? Does that make sense? Why? Because the bachelor is single. So if I ask you who's the bachelor's wife, the question itself is illogical. So when I say who created God, the question itself is illogical. When I say who created the uncreated, who made the unmade, who caused the uncaused. Well, wait a minute. If I say God, then by definition, I am referring to a being who is unmade, uncreated, uncaused, eternal. If I say bachelor, I'm referring to someone who is unmarried. So if he's unmarried, he doesn't have a wife. If he's uncaused, he's not caused. Are you following? Does that make sense a little bit? Okay. And this is what Stephen Hawking said. Many people do not like the idea that time has a beginning, probably because it smacks of divine intervention. And he wrote a book called A Brief History of Time. And he is a physicist who talks about this concept of time extensively. And he came to the realization that time also cannot be eternal. some verses from the scriptures. معلش علشان يعني if this was on college campuses I wouldn't have said this. بس يعني عشان برضو نكون augmenting our discussion from the scriptures. Therefore do not be ashamed of the testimony of our Lord according to his own purpose. This is in 2 Timothy. And grace which was given to us in Christ Jesus when? Before time begins. Father, and John 17, the priestly prayer, Christ is speaking to his heavenly Father, his Father, Father, I desire that they also whom you gave me may be with me where I am, that they may behold my glory which you have given me. When? For you loved me before the foundation of the world. Psalm 90, before the mountains were brought forth, or even you had formed the earth and the world, even from everlasting to everlasting you are God. So there are several verses from the scriptures that prove that God is, or speak to the eternity of God.
Would you say, I think we've established that God is out of time. He is beyond time. That's not a dimension that he is limited by. Would you say that the only time that God was limited by time was during incarnation?
Very good question. I would say this is when God entered into the realm of time, not limited by time. Because when he was incarnate, he did not cease to be God. You see? He entered into time. عارف زي ايه؟ Shakespeare became a character in his play, in Hamlet. Shakespeare became a character in Hamlet, but did not cease to be the author of Hamlet. God entered into time, and he used the word entered, and the word entered is very important. He entered into that dimension, yet did not cease to be God and was not limited by it. Okay? Correct me if I'm wrong, Abuna. Okay. Yani forgive me, معلش, I know it's a little late, but I want to share with you the gift of existence. Okay? And if you don't get that slide, we'll move on. Existence, your existence is like a gift given from cause to effect. In other words, did you have a cause for your existence, or did you just come? We all had a cause for our existence, I hope, right? We all have a... Did we? Did we have a cause for our existence? We did, correct? Okay. If no one has the gift of existence, then the gift cannot be passed down. If no one has that gift, it cannot be passed down. I wrote this bullet by bullet so that we can go over it one by one. If there's no God or being who exists by his own nature, then the gift of existence cannot be passed down. Well, we received the gift of existence. Then there must be a God whose existence is from himself. That's why we say God exists necessarily. In Arabic, بنسميها واجب الوجود. He exists necessarily. By necessity, he exists. طيب. Objection number 2. We'll talk about 2 more objections and we'll call it a night. Why couldn't the universe have created everything? Well, you say God created the universe. Why couldn't the universe have created everything? مش كده? Well, we have to make that distinction between matter and mind. Everything that exists in this universe could be categorized in 2 categories. Matter, which is what? Material, physical things. Or mind, immaterial, metaphysical things. ماشي? Are you with me on that? There's mind, العقل, والمادة, material and immaterial, matter and mind. Now, everything that exists is classified as either matter or mind. طيب. Either matter or mind must be eternal to create or to cause the other. Either this caused that or this caused that. واحدة منهم caused the other. Well, we've concluded that matter is not eternal. Well, that leaves us with what? Mind must be eternal to give rise to matter. Not only that, but listen to me, listen carefully to this. It has to be a mind that created matter for one other reason, more important reason. Mind is the only faculty that has a will to create. You see? Mind must be the creator, because for me to create, I have to have a what? A will to create. إرادة إن أنا أخلق. فاهمين قصدي؟ I must be willing to create. But a wall doesn't have a will to do anything. The wall is just there. Can the wall will to do something? No. Who only has a will? A mind. And what does that point to? The most important thing with a P, capital P, a person. A person has a mind has a will creates. Are you following? Because there's creation, it indicates there's a will to create, to put into existence, to create into existence, and that will to create points to the existence of a mind that says, I want to do something, and that mind points to the existence of a what? Person. Yes, sir. Sorry.
Aren't we conflating will and desire? Because to say that that a mind wills by definition doesn't necessarily mean that the mind desires. It means all we're saying is that will could be just a self-reflexive impulse or an obligation or a matter of it exists to create because that's what it is. It
Very good.
Have to have a person.
Very good. Well, very good. But the existence of a will to create something, whether out of desire or out of compulsion, it doesn't matter at that point. To will to create something, that means it points to a mind that says, I want to do something, whether out of desire or not, that's not the issue. But because there is a mind, then there must be a person, intelligence, that says, I want to do this. I made something out of nothing.
Sorry, I don't understand why desire is necessary. I don't know why compulsion necessarily implies the existence of personhood. Compulsion doesn't have to even include any awareness or any knowledge.
Sure.
It would merely mean that the thing, by virtue of its own existence, gives, causes other things. I'm not seeing the connection that you're drawing between will and then necessarily personhood, given that there is a clear difference between desire and compulsion as a non-personhood thing.
Okay.
So I think what Andrew's trying to say is that there is will, that's just like ability to do something, to decide and do it. The desire question is a completely different question, and I think Abuna helped me answer that question before by saying, well, why did God desire to create us or create the universe? Well, he did that. He didn't create us for the universe. He created the universe for us. And the answer to the desire is the same answer that you would give for a father and a mother to have a child. So I think there's two different questions. The will is being, like I said.
But they're separate, but again, the point I'm trying to make, and I see where you're coming from, but the point I'm trying to make is that there must be a mind, whether out of compulsion, desire, whatever you call it, but there must be a mind. How else? Now, my question to you would be, how else would you justify and explain the existence of intelligence? And let me say something else. And if you can park this point till we get to the third objection, it may actually illustrate it better. Do you mind?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, just the third objection will illustrate it a little bit better. But again, so the first objection was who created God? We talked about this. The second objection is, well, couldn't the universe have been eternal and created everything else? Well, we talked about the matter and mind and the will to create. Do you guys know who this guy is? John Lennox? Not John Lennon, John Lennox. He's a funny apologist. He's also a professor, world-renowned scientist and philosopher of science in Oxford. I have a little video clip, but I think for the sake of time, I will. He talks about who created God, and actually he addresses the point of matter, mind, and will, and all of that. But we'll maybe discuss it later. We'll look at it later. Okay, this is when the little boy asks you the question, who created God? I borrowed this from Bishop Musa, the Bishop of Youth. He actually had this illustration when he was asked this question. When my little boy asked me who created God, I asked him, well, what pulls this last card? He said, well, the front one in front of it. Well, then what pulls this card? Well, the one in front of it, and we go all the way to this car, to the engine car. And I say, well, what pulls this very first car? And he said, well, it kind of pulls itself from itself. And I said, that's exactly God. He kind of pulls himself from himself. He exists. He has the properties of existence from himself. That settled with him, at least for now. Objection number 3. This doesn't prove a personal God, but it could be just a vague force or energy. These are real objections that I heard, by the way. Okay. Now you say it could be, like in Star Wars, the Force. May the Force be with you all. The Force created us. Or the energy. Oprah. If you watch Oprah, maybe you don't, which I'm glad you don't. She's big on this energy and force that's in the room that give rise and existence to everything else. What would you say to that? Is it some kind of vague force? Well, again, I appeal to the law of causality that says cause and effect. The law of causality says something that is very important to understand, which is this second bullet. The effect never is qualitatively superior or quantitatively greater than the cause. In layman's terms, the effect cannot be greater than the cause. This is just a law of philosophy and science, as a matter of fact. You know what I mean by that? The effect cannot be greater than the cause. Now, there is consciousness and intelligence in the effect in us, which means there must be consciousness and intelligence in the first cause. If I am capable of knowing as a human being, the first cause that produced me must be a mind or also a knowing person. If I am capable of choosing, the first cause must have a will. If I am, because a human is someone and is not something, the effect must also be someone and not something. If I have reason and I am the effect, then the cause must also have reason. If I have intelligence as the effect, then the first cause must also have intelligence, because the effect cannot have anything greater than the cause. Do you see what I'm saying? There is intelligence in the creation. There must be intelligence in the creator. So, and in Psalm 94 it says, "He who planted the ear, shall he not hear? He who formed the eye, shall he not see?" It's very intuitive. If you caused something, I love this verse, by the way. It basically speaks to this law of causality. If I caused something to exist, I must have the what? Properties, full properties, qualitatively and quantitatively in that effect. طيب. What is that first cause? If we look at the effect, we can then have an idea of the characteristics of the first cause. The first cause of space must be infinite. The first cause of time must be eternal. The first cause of energy must be omnipotent, or kulliy al-qudra, or all-powerful. The first cause of complexity and science must be omniscient. The first cause of moral values must be good. And the first cause of human integrity must be true and truthful. And the first cause of human love must be loving. And finally, the first cause of life must be life-giving. Now, if you look at the characteristics of the first cause, infinite, eternal, omnipotent, omniscient, good, truthful, loving, life-giving, you'll come up with Jesus Christ. That is the answer of the question, where did the universe and humanity come from? All through reason and logic. These are the characteristics of the God of the Christians. They worship this God who is all-loving, all-powerful, giver of life, infinite, and all of these characteristics. Looking at the universe points to the creator of the universe. And who said that? St. Paul said it. Do you know where? In Romans chapter 1. He said his attributes are clearly seen by his creation, so that you are without what? Finish the verse. Without an excuse. That's what he said in Romans 1:18 and 21. Okay. I think I have, here you go. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. And all of these verses, every house, this is in Hebrews, every house is built by someone. You don't see houses come up from nothing. But he who builds all things is God. A very important verse to remember in Hebrews 3:4. Anyways, I'll skim through the verses and I will come up with, I'll have a couple of more slides. And then, forgive me, this is taken longer than I thought. And if this is too heavy philosophically, bardo malish, forgive me. The next couple of talks will be a lot more practical than this. So I pardon the complexity of it. Herbert Spencer in 1903 made a very profound scientific statement. He said this: everything in the universe can be explained by 5 things. I want you to remember these 5 things. By the way, this guy is a disciple of Charles Darwin. He's an evolutionist. He's an atheist. He said, space, matter, time, force, and action explain everything in this universe. Remember those things. Space, matter, time, force, and action. Meshi? Now, he said, I would like to explain or to understand what explains those 5 things, or the answer of these 5 things. How do they all converge? How do I explain matter, time, force, action, and space in this universe? Now, if Herbert Spencer opened the book of Genesis, the very first verse of the Bible says what? In the beginning, time, God, force, created action, the heavens, space, and the earth, matter. And there you have it. In the very first verse of the scriptures, answer the question that Herbert Spencer has been bewildered about and confused and spent most of his life trying to come up with an answer for. It is all in the scriptures, because the scriptures point to the creator of the creation. I'm not going to even go through who am I from an atheist's perspective, but here's the question that I want to give you. Which one would you rather be? Deliberately created or blindly evolved? Which one fulfills you existentially and gives you meaning in life? That someone deliberately, lovingly created you, or you have been evolving blindly? One last slide, and I promise you this is the last slide that I have here for you, which is one of my very favorite quotes by Peter Kreeft. He's a philosophy professor at Boston College. I love this excerpt, and I think it sums it all up. And I'll read it to you twice. Someone once said that if you sat 1,000,000 monkeys at 1,000,000 typewriters for 1,000,000 years, one of them would eventually type all of Hamlet by chance. But when we find the text of Hamlet, we don't wonder whether it came from chance. Why then does the atheist use this incredibly improbable explanation for the universe? Clearly, because it is his only chance of remaining an atheist. At this point, we need a psychological explanation of the atheist rather than a logical explanation of the universe. We have a logical explanation of the universe, but the atheist doesn't like it. It's called God. I think it's very to the point. I'm not going to repeat it again, but you can read it again yourself. That is what I would like, and this is basically concludes what I wanted to share with you. And this is basically also what St. Paul said in Romans, is that the atheist doesn't see any evidence of God clearly for a very obvious reason. So, in talking about the 2 questions, I went a bit quickly, malish, for the sake of time, and I want to give you some time to answer questions. But if you maybe prepare those questions for tomorrow, we have all day tomorrow, and we can have some more شوية وقت أحسن شوية من النهاردة مش كده؟ because we're not going to be pressed with time. We'll stick with the schedule, but we have some leeway to answer questions and to have a discussion. Any comments that you have on the first 2 points we discussed? Where did the universe come from? And where did we come from? Any comments or questions? Did that resonate at all? Did that make any sense at all? a little bit? Yes. Hold on. I'll come to you.
Well, I mean, it's just a basic question. You know, in the beginning you said this is it's according to like a cosmological argument. Is there more than one argument?
Yes. So here's what I would go to Google and say 20 and type this 20 arguments for the existence of God by Peter Kreeft, and his last name is spelled this way: Peter Kreeft, Kreeft.
Okay.
20 arguments for the existence of God by Peter Kreeft. He has 20 arguments, and he discusses those arguments in a very attractive way.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. There are a lot more than just one or two. Yes, sir.
I forget. You said that the characteristics that created or show that it was Jesus. Yes, those. When he says he makes us in his image, made us in his image, I feel like it goes beyond the physical appearance. I feel these are what he's meaning by made us in his image, by making.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. Let me explain. Very good question. I like your questions. So, we need to delineate or to distinguish between two things. And according to the church fathers, God created us in his what and what? Image and likeness. Suratu wa mithalu. Now, they're not the same thing. Okay? What is his image and what is his likeness? We all share in God's image. When I say we, believers and non-believers alike, we all share in his image, but not all of us share in his likeness. So God's image is what we are. God's likeness is what we ought to be. You see, we grow to be in his likeness. That is something that we choose for ourselves. But his image is imprinted upon each and every one of us. So his image, we have a little bit of that, but not in an absolute term, in a relative term. In other words, we are not omnipotent and omniscient, but we have power and we have knowledge. You see, we have reason. We have eternity. We can live eternally, I mean. We're the effect of the cause. And because we are the effect of the cause, we have a lot of the image of the cause. And that's, I think, what you were saying. Yeah. Very good. Umar.
So the image and likeness, you said that we all have the image, but we all attain the likeness, right? So the likeness is what we ought to be like God. Exactly. Image is what we have. So when sin entered the world, when sin entered Adam and Eve, and we were corrupted, the image was untouched, but the likeness was what was corrupted?
Very good. Very good question. Now we get into a little bit of theology. So the image of God in us remained the same, but it was distorted, and this is what His Holiness Pope Shenouda asked that question. I'm going to give you exactly what he said. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm just going to repeat what he said. Is that when you still have, like angels, for example, the fallen angels, they became devils, but they did not relinquish, or they did not get rid of their image. They still have the same nature of an angel, but then what was tainted is three things: body, soul, and spirit. So your body, when sin entered into my life, my body became sinful. It was led to corruption. My soul also was tainted, so now my desires became altered and messed up and distorted. And my spirit also was tainted. Now God, exactly, I have lost that connection because I chose for myself to disassociate with life. So that's why my spirit died, my soul now has evil desires, and my body is left in corruption.
On creation, our image and likeness were perfect.
Exactly.
After sin entered, image was distorted, and that image disables our likeness piece to reach how we want to be with God.
But God, that's very true, theologically speaking, but then you cannot just stop there, because you have to look at what Christ now did. That's the glass half empty. But when the glass half full is when Christ now said, okay, I'm going to come and do what? regenerate that image in a much better way. That's why for the Redeemer, the characteristics of a Redeemer, he must be also a creator, a regenerator of the old creation. And what St. Paul says in Romans chapter 6 is that he gave us that new man. What is that new man? It's a whole different creation. Out of baptism, you are now created in a whole new nature. You now become heavenly. So what we distorted, Christ came to restore in a much better way. Much better way. Now we can eat his body and blood. Adam and Eve couldn't do that. Anybody, any other questions or comments? Was that helpful? I just want to get your feedback. I don't want to feel like I'm wasting your time or this is not resonating with you at all. Guys?
Very
helpful?
Yes.
Okay. We'll see you, God willing, we'll see you tomorrow. I don't know how many of you are going to go to the hikes. What is that? What is that? Oh, quiet time right now? Okay, well, we'll have, I just want to say, tomorrow, God willing, at 9:30, I believe we're going to talk about the morality and ethics lecture. I thank you for your attention and forgive me if I took a lot longer than I needed to. I'll see you, God willing, tomorrow.